This is from Dan Labbe, cleveland.com. 5 burning questions the Browns must answer on offense this offseason. Number 1, is Jerry Jeudy the number 1 wide receiver? Number 2, what do you have in Cedric Tillman? Number 3, is there left tackle in the building? Number 4, was this year a blip on the radar for David Njoku? And number 5, what do they want their running back room to feature? Those are all legitimate. And Jerry Jeudy, the question with Jerry Jeudy is, he had the 5th most receiving yards in franchise history this year for the Browns. Most of them were with Jameis Winston. He's not going to be back.
Those are all good questions. Very, very good questions because all of those players have question marks. You start with Jerry Jeudy. Great season from Jerry Jeudy. However, you have to notice that the production dipped when Jameis Winston went out of the game. Looked like he dropped a lot of footballs when it was DTR. He said he came out after the game and said, I didn't do the good enough job catching the football when a young guy got it to me. Looked horrible with Deshaun Watson. So you're 1 for 3. You're 1 for 3 in terms of your production that you have. And then you go back and look at his production with some of the other quarterbacks in Denver that weren't there. So you start to say to yourself, okay, is he a true number 1? I think he's the most, I guess, the most settled question mark because we've seen it this year on tape and we've seen him actually put a lot of good work on tape. And what you would hope to think is, all right, well, if he's a 1A or a B, the Browns still need to come out with a playmaker. They still need to add another wide receiver. We've been saying it forever because it leads us to the second guy, Cedric Tillman. We saw a couple of good games from Cedric Tillman. We also saw drops in the early part of the season. And then we see durability concerns. I mean, he had a concussion, and that seemed to happen in the middle of the year. And continuously, as we looked, not on the field, not on the football field. So, I mean, he's getting to the point where he's been around a little bit of time. He's been in the system, and we're going to have to move and fill this room on the run. If we can get something for Cedric Tillman, awesome. Like if we can get that he turns out to be a number 2 or 3 receiver. But I don't think you could count on him just showing up and being like, oh, I'm a number 2 or a number 1 receiver next year. So the receiver room needs upgrades just like the quarterback room. You get to DeJuan Jones. Right now, if I was them, and I'm not saying it's just to DeJuan Jones. I'd say this to everything. I think a new offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson, and not to really, kick a man when he's down. I thought he did a terrible job last year. Comes out that Mike Vrabel is actually running them rooms. He's the one that's way more pivotal. I think the Cleveland Browns take a huge step back because of Bill Callahan. There wasn't the aggressiveness. I think linemen need to be in better shape. I'll say it, not just DeJuan. I'm talking about Wyatt Teller. I'm talking about Joe Bitonio. I'm talking about Ethic Pochich. I think they need to get back to a point where they're being challenged, and those guys need to come out lean and mean and be ready to go the long haul. I thought camp was too weak. I thought those guys worked their way into shape. This offensive line play got better, but in the beginning of the season, I think they didn't know what they're doing. I didn't understand what schemes they were running, and I think they were out of shape. So DeJuan Jones is the biggest concern because he is 400 pounds, because he is a big guy. He's going to have to come back, and I would have him on a weight program right now. Hey, I need you by this time in the facility, or we're going to have to start talking about fines. David Njoku was another one. I thought he played heavier. I thought he lost a step in terms of his quickness. I think he in and out of his breaks wasn't the same. I think David Njoku needs to come back in shape with a renewed sense of vigor to try to get him back to being one of those guys talked about as being a top 5 tight end. And I think you also in this draft had to go get another running back. I like Jerome Ford. He's more of an outside runner. I don't like the fact that he's not a guy that can get the tough 3 yards. And we know what was up with Nick Chubb. He was not the same back. We told you he wasn't going to be the same back. He now has the foot injury. I don't think you can lean on Nick Chubb to be the bell cow back. They need to get improvements at the running back position as well. That's a little long-winded. But long story short, Dan Labbe definitely talks about those 5 things. And those are huge questions going in the draft. And Browns have to get all of them fixed as much as possible with younger talent and cheaper talent in this year's draft.
Yeah, when I'm looking at the offense, I think Jerry Jeudy has the potential to be a playmaker with the ball in his hand. You got to get me 2 more. David Njoku has the potential. You need 2. You need a running back and you need another receiver that defenses go, man, when he gets the ball, he's a problem. Other than Jerry Jeudy, they really, and maybe Njoku if he's healthy, those are the only two guys that a defense has to even concern themselves with relative to being a playmaker.
They don't scare you at all. The speed, the size, the quickness, the deep threat. The Cleveland Browns, I said it, they are playing in the 1980s. And when you are going to go back to Kevin Stefanski, when you're running play action, you got to make play action count. When I'm faking and running the ball and setting it up, I can't have receivers dropping the ball. I can't have offensive linemen holding. I can't have legal guys downfield. And when you get the ball, you might need to take it to the house. So you need the weapons, you need the discipline, and I think the Browns need to grossly just their athletic profile in general, top down, their scouting evaluation should be on quick, twitchy, fast, explosive athletes at every position on the board, and that's the way the Cleveland Browns have to go about retooling this team.